Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube as Speaking Podcast. I also have the Awakening Podcast, the Meditation Podcast, the Learn Polish Podcast, and the Crypto Podcast, and all can be found on roycollin.com. Today, my guest, please welcome Robert Raymond Riopel. Did I do it justice?
You nailed it, Roy. You nailed it. Nicely done.
So I always like to ask, you might let the audience know, who's Robert?
Well, I am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. I'm an international best-selling author, an app designer. But the thing I think I take most pride in is the fact that I've been blessed to travel around the world several times over the last few years, impacting lives as a trainer, life-transforming trainer. And to date, I've personally trained in 3 to 5 day workshops over 500,000 people around the world so far. And that's who I am. And to sum it up, I'm just me.
Well, that's a lot of people to be training, so that's impressive straight off the bat.
Well, thank you.
So, how did you get into this? How did you get into wanting to be kind of public speaker?
It was more in the beginning out of necessity, which kind of sounds strange. When I was younger, I was taught work hard, stay loyal to a company. That company will take care of you. And that's what I did. But by the time I was 21, I had worked for 3 different companies. And my mind's going, wait, I'm doing what I was told. Why is it not working? And because of necessity, when I was laid off from the 3rd company, I ended up doing pizza deliveries for a little company that people may have heard of called Domino's Pizza. And from working hard with them, I ended up becoming a manager. From a manager, my wife became my assistant. We started working open to close 7 days a week because we know how to work hard. And we ended up having the opportunity to become franchisees. And when we did, we didn't have any money to do it. But because we have passion, we found a way to be able to actually buy my franchisees 2 stores from them and do it with no money of our own. And we became franchisees at the age of 23. And we're like, oh, we've got this made. We're now making pretty good money. But our mindset and our blueprint, as we call it, was set for spending more money than we were earning. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we had actually created a debt of over $150,000, and we were going down quickly. And that's when we were actually introduced to personal development. We walked into a 3-day weekend that we had actually been given tickets to the preview from. And the only reason we showed up was because each ticket was worth $39. And Roy, thank goodness we could not waste $39 tickets, because from that preview, we went to this 3-day weekend where we learned why we were in debt. We took ownership of it, that it was us that caused it, and we learned skills of how to get out of it. And what we did is we actually came out of that 3 days and we put into practice what we had learned. And here's a difference from most successful people to non-successful people actually take action. And we decided to put it into action, and we were able to go from being over $150,000 in debt to actually being retired completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32. And my mind went, wow, that worked. If this much information gave us that result, what would more learning do? And we became avid students. And while doing that, I found my passion. My passion was to teach, because I realized if I could even help just even one person do what my wife and I had been able to do, go from being deep in debt to being retired, it would make it all worthwhile. And of course, my mentor, the person who had helped us, he had been looking for trainers. He had been looking for years, but he said you had to have a lot of experience in front of a lot of people for a lot of years. And I'd never trained a day in my life. But what did I have? I had that passion that I talked about earlier. And I ended up finding out a way and creating a way where I became his first protege, first person to ever teach his programs other than himself, and then go on to teach thousands of trainers around the world as I was teaching myself and just getting to live my passion. So that's kind of the short, long version of it, Roy.
Very good one. You must have had a very good kind of positive mindset as well, because going through, because I went the same, kind of doing very well. But my bit was a little bit extra. It was like I went to -5 million instead of +5 million, and was kind of personally liable for it, because I didn't realize, as being a director in Poland of all different companies, you're personally liable. Whereas in most countries, a limited liability company means you're grand. But so I kind of, but you learn things and you go through a little journey, and I think you come out a better man because of it. You kind of you look at things differently. Like, even just when you're buying stuff now, I don't know, it's the same with you, but it's like it's not about the money anymore.
Without a doubt. See, and what I love to have people understand, because people get so driven by the money, and I love to teach them that if you do what you love to do, and you do because you love it, and you learn how to make money with it, then money becomes a beautiful side effect. It's not the reason you're doing it. And one of my precepts with any trainers I train, I'd say if I start to realize or feel that you're just doing this for the money, I won't teach you anymore, because now you're doing it for the wrong reason. You've got to do it because you love to do it, and let that money come to you. Because I love the universal principle that says you will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give. So if you're making a lot of money, that means you're giving a lot of value. That's what's the key right there for me.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. So what were you like as a child? I mean, you kind of made yourself become speaking, but like when you were younger, was it something you were into, or hiding in the corner?
Yeah, I'm a naturally shy person, and I hide my shyness by being outgoing. And when I was a child, we moved around a lot. My parents, just to keep the family fed, we would move from town to town while they were trying to get different jobs. And on one side, it's interesting. It's on one side, they're saying, Robert, you can do anything you put your mind to. You can accomplish anything you want. But on the other side, I was watching them. I was watching them having to struggle and do whatever they had to do to make ends meet. So I was always having that kind of combat going on in my mind. Well, they say I can do this, but I'm seeing them not being able to do what they truly love. And so that's kind of how my mind played out as a kid, because I never spent more than 6 months to maybe a year in one school. And being naturally shy, I wanted to make friends quickly because I didn't know how long I was going to be in that school. And so I do some pretty, we'll call it interesting things. I won't say weird, interesting things to make friends. And when we settled down in a city for more than a year, that's when kind of things were like, wow, this is what most people do. This is what normal is. And that wasn't until I hit like grade 5 that I really got to experience what it was that most children went through. And by then I got good at hiding my shyness by being that outgoing person.
Very good, very good. And like, you've spoken in lots of countries and states. What have you learned, especially in the different countries? What have you kind of learned how you must adjust to connect with the audience?
Yeah, well, one, I learned being Canadian, not all my jokes, and I'm not a funny person, I have bad jokes. Not all jokes translate very well in a lot of languages. And so a friend of mine taught me, he said, Robert, when you're working with your translators and your interpreters, brief them that if you tell a joke and they don't understand it, because I've had it, and Roy, you may have had this as well. I've said something, my interpreter just stopped speaking, and you watch the whole crowd just kind of get that look on their face, like, and and all of a sudden I'm like, hello, are you understanding what I'm saying? Is anybody there? Is this mic working? And so I've started telling my translators, I say, if there's a joke of mine you don't understand, which there will be many, just say to the audience, this trainer just told a joke, laugh, please. And so the moment, and I get the bigger laughs that way. So I know they've done that. So we've had a lot of fun with it. And so I've learned, that my jokes don't always translate. I've also learned to be very, very patient. And I used to be a very fast speaker. Oh my goodness. The running joke was I'd be going along and I'd say to the audience, how many of you realize I speak really, really fast? And all their hands would go up. And I'd say, great, take your left hand, put it to your ear, dial up how quickly you listen, and we'll be good. But when I started traveling around the world more, I realized to really allow my message to land, I had to be willing to slow down myself. I had to be able to take the time. And so I became more patient, more tolerant, because I grew up in a very sheltered kind of lifestyle in the beginning. Never traveled outside of Canada really until I was older, or North America until I became a trainer. And as I started training around the world, all of a sudden I realized we're all so similar. We have all the same kind of fears and crap going on in our head. And that just because someone does something a different way than I do, doesn't make it bad, doesn't make them worse than me or better than me. No, we're all pretty much the same. And so I learned a level of tolerance I'd never experienced before and feel so blessed that I have, because there's so many beautiful cultures and people around the world. That's one of the main reasons I love to still travel around the world, is because I get to meet such amazing people with different lifestyles, different upbringings, different beliefs. And it's pretty cool because I'm a naturally curious kind of person anyway.
Excellent. And when you're going to different events, do you have like a checklist to make sure everything is okay? Because obviously there's a lot more professionalism in some organizations than other, but you don't want it to kind of reflect on you. Do you have a kind of system in place that helps you look better?
Well, yes and no. The main system, when I say yes, is that I have amazing partners, and because we've done so many events together, they have the checklist, they have the team. But I'm in the day before. I'm working with any assistant I have that's going to be assisting me on stage. I'm connecting with the team, because one of the big beliefs I have, and when I train trainers around the world, Roy, is I say this: as I say, I don't care who you are. I don't care how amazing you are, how charismatic you can be, the best in the world at what you do. If you don't have an amazing team behind you working and supporting you, you will never be as effective as you can. So I make sure my team realizes how much I appreciate them. So I want to take the time. One of probably my main goals as a checklist is I show up the day before when setup's being done to connect with the team, to thank them for their service, even before we've begun, because I know they've already been going, and to let them know that, I have attention to detail, and that things may go wrong, but as we stay on top of it, I don't get upset. I don't get pissed at them. I don't start yelling at them. It's like, I was in your position. I spent 2.5 years doing logistics. So I understand every part of the room when I'm on the stage, and I can tell, and usually in advance, if something's going to go wrong, because, my normal trainings are 3 to 5 days long, and I'm on stage for up to 12 hours a day. So it's not like it's not like a short talk where it's like, I'm just going to give that scripted, let's go, I've got it so practiced. It's about being able to read the audience, going where they need to go. And so I'm always aware of that. So my checklist is just making sure we have the room, the space set up to allow me to create a context that people feel safe in, so that if we bring up something emotional for them, they feel that they can say it or speak it to release the energy. And so I don't know if that really answers your question,
No,
but
it
that's kind
does.
of
Yeah.
how I set it up. Yeah.
And like with these kind of 3 to 5 days, how do you structure it? I mean, 12 hours. That's tough. Like, I mean, I don't know. Do you do the Tony Robbins and you just energize everything and everyone's pumped? But I mean, that makes me listening to do 12 hours or 3 to 5 days sounds a bit tiring. But so how do you structure it and how do you keep people awake?
Yeah, we use accelerated learning. So it's not just me talking. There's a lot of processes, a lot of times where they're doing exercises or writing things down and then sharing with each other, then sharing with the audience. And so my goal is to also take them on a roller coaster. I do joke with people who know who Tony Robbins is, and I'll say I'm a shorter version of him because I am very energetic on the stage, but I don't just, not only can you be monotone in your voice, you can be monotone in your energy. So if you're always trying to be rah, 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 that becomes monotone after a while. So think of it like being that roller coaster. There will be people laughing at times, crying at times, happy, pissed off. As a trainer, a lot of people are afraid, well, what if someone gets upset at me? Or as a speaker, what if someone gets upset at me? And that used to be a huge fear for me. And I realized that if that was my fear, my greatest concern in my head is what I will manifest in my audience. So if all of a sudden I've got the fear that, what if someone gets upset? Chances are someone's going to jump up in the audience and yell and scream. And so today, I realize that's where some of the greatest breakthroughs can come from. So I don't have it as a fear. I just know that if it ever happens, because I've created that space, it's perfect in the moment. And I've had people go off the rails, and instead of panicking, we've turned it into some great lessons. I've had people storm out of the room. That's great, because I can't, we were talking before you hit record, the 3 R's of my name, Robert Raymond Riopel. I also utilize them as other ways the R stand for. The first R stands for real. I keep my trainings real. I can't just give fluff and, hey, the world is beautiful. I give the good, I give the bad, I give the ugly. I'm going to keep it real with my audience. So if someone disagrees with me, I'm not going to make them wrong. I'm going to, because I know that's their truth in the moment. So by having a nice context and great space held, we can usually process through stuff. If not, and they leave upset, I have to trust. And this is a big one for speakers and trainers, Roy. Trust that in the moment, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And I'm not going to please everybody. I'm not going to make everybody happy. And guess what? Okay, that's absolutely okay. So the second R, my name stands for relevant. I make sure my prep, you talk about pre-prep, is I'm always making sure that the information I'm going to teach and go through is relevant for today. If it worked 15 years ago or 5 years ago, but isn't relevant for today, I'm not going to teach it. And then I'm going to make sure anything I teach is repeatable. I love systems. Systems, systems, systems. So I want to teach that when people get it, they realize they can repeat it again and again to get the results that they're looking for. And so that's kind of the ways I'm able to do a 12-hour day. And when the audience is there, because we have great breaks as well, we have meal breaks, but the audience doesn't even realize that they've been there that long because they've been so involved, not just me doing the talk.
And when somebody doesn't storm out of the room but kind of directs their, anger towards you, what's the best way to deal with situations like that?
Yeah, part of the techniques that I teach trainers is where to stand on the stage, how to create the space so that you're still connected to the whole audience. I'll let them say their piece. I'll let them get it out. I won't try to stop them first unless they're rambling. But I'll go into coach mode. And as I'm listening, because now I'm very, very present with them, I may say, stop, what's your question? Or stop, why is it that you're really angry? And that sometimes gets people more upset. But again, from years of practicing this, I just trust in the moment I'm listening to them for keys, for little tips, for little clues on what's really going on deeper. And I'll ask them, I'll say, look, I'm here to be of service. And if you're willing to play, and what I mean by that is, I won't say, can I coach you? Because then if someone's already upset, they're gonna be like, and the words that'll come out of their mouth probably are not good. And so I'll say, are you open to playing? And I'll say, let me explain what I mean by that. I'll say, sometimes while I'm on stage, something comes through me. And I've learned to just say it as it comes through. But before I do, I'm gonna ask you if you're open to that. If you are, we'll continue. If you're not, we won't. And most people say, yeah, fine, right? And so I'll just go into it. And usually I can kind of tap into what's really going on underneath. And again, I've had people storm out, but what's interesting is because I set a tight context at the beginning of training, more times than not, once that person cools down and they start to think about what really triggered them, they've come back to the room, they've sat through the rest, and we have a conversation later, one-on-one, where they have thanked me for being willing to hold the space and allow them to really go through what they need to go through. And I've even had at times, and I don't say this to scare your listeners that maybe you want to be speakers and trainers, but this is why you do this, because it's your passion, not because of the money. I've had people who were bipolar and off their medication, and they went off the rails during a training, and I've been able to handle it. Or that's where having great staff comes in, because sometimes I've had to say, look, stop, you need to leave the room right now. I don't know they're off medication or anything, but if it gets to a stage where it's impacting the room in a negative way, I will actually have them removed from the room. And again, if I have the fear of that, then that's going to put fear into my audience, like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But if I can stand in my confidence, because I've really set a space that people feel safe. They feel safe, that they know, because we do a lot of emotional stuff. And if they're not feeling safe, the training won't be as deep and impactful as it can. And it comes with a lot of practice, Roy. And I'm going to tell you that if someone that's watching or listening to this says, I want to be a speaker and trainer, what is the best way to do it? Practice, practice, practice. It's what you're doing when you're not on the stage to be ready on the stage. That's going to make all the difference in the world. And in the thousands of trainers I've trained, that's the biggest difference between people who actually do well and people don't. The people that don't do well, they sit there and go, oh, okay, I'll be ready. I learned a new technique. I'm good. You've got to practice. How do you become number one in anything? You put in the time and the effort. And one of my mentors, my favorite quote of his is this. He says, every master was once a disaster. And that is so true. And I'm very willing to share my journey with people that look. When I first started wanting to be a trainer, I actually had people tell me to my face. They looked at me and they went, you want to be a trainer? Good luck. But because I was too tenacious to allow their beliefs to hold me back, I put in the work. And even today, with all the trainings I've done, I still put in the practice. I still put in the work, because the moment I think I know it all, I'm done. And I hope that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Love it. Love it. And I think, people don't realize as well. I mean, even, the person that storms out of the room and you can have a one-on-one later, that makes it worthwhile when you can actually transform someone's life. You can just give that light bulb moment, even though, when they release something, they're not able to control their emotions in that moment. But later, just to be able to do that to somebody, it's a wonderful experience.
And it's one of the main reasons I do what I do, because I love it when someone comes back to me and they'll say, do you remember in this past training last year or months ago, a couple years ago, you said this? Well, here's how it transformed my life. And I get either one arm, two arm, or whole body goosebumps. And what an amazing feeling. Because when you're a speaker and a trainer and you're doing it to impact lives, you may never know how you impact lives, how you maybe, what something you said, how it's changed someone's life. And the beautiful part of it is you don't have to know. You don't. If you think you have to know, that's ego coming in. That's ego going, hey, I need to know how great I am because I'm transforming lives. No, you don't. Just trust again that you're doing it. And you may hear from students, you may not. And both are perfect.
Yeah, beautiful. Love it. And I've seen one of your acts. You're a very good dancer.
I do like to have fun.
So I've seen you doing Gangnam Style, and I mean, just looking at the audience, because they all had their cameras, but you could see I know I'm watching it on a video, but you could feel the energy level there. Is that something that you do in the kind of the morgue time when people are after their lunch, or is it something at the start of an event? And what other kind of things do you do to get people to get so excited? Because that was unbelievable to watch that, to be honest.
Well, one of the things I in my trainings, I am a breakthrough expert. And so I've been blessed to put thousands of people across hot firewalks, just like Tony Robbins. 36 feet we do, and I've had thousands of students walk across hot coals. And so we do some kind of breakthrough exercise in every training. And so a few years ago, when I came out of retirement, because I was actually, it's interesting. It's kind of another piece for your listeners that want to be speakers and trainers. When I train, I'm living my passion. But there is such a thing as overliving your passion. And from 2004, when I did my first solo training, where my mentor wasn't even in the room, I had 1,200 students in Los Angeles, California for a 3-day weekend. And I realized that this is definitely working and I'm going to be doing this. All of a sudden, in the next 4.5 years, I did over 200 multi-day trainings in North America and then a little bit in Asia as we were just launching. And I overlived my passion. And I got burnt out, Roy. I got burnt out. Plus, because I wasn't taking care of myself on stage, I herniated a disc. I didn't even realize it. For 2 years, I thought I had a sciatic problem, a pinched nerve in my sciatic. And so I overlived my passion, and I had to take a year off because I was so burnt out. And that 1 year turned into 3.5 years off. And I went from overliving my passion, which is bad, to not living it at all, which is just as bad. Because also now some of the non-supportive negative habits came back into my life. And when I realized I had to train again because it's my gift, when I came out of retirement in 2012, that's right around the time Gangnam Style was big. And I just marveled at Psy, because if you look at Psy, the singer, and you look at his journey, most people go, oh, one-hit wonder, blah, 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 blah. But if you really look at his journey, it was a one-hit wonder that took, and an overnight success that took him 12 years to get there, of following his passion and not listening to people even going against his parents who wanted him to be a doctor or lawyer or something like that. And when he said, no, I want to be an entertainer, they quit paying for his education and made him come home. And he kept with his passion, had, twin daughters, and just knew that there was something he wanted to do. And so that song was hitting big. And I don't know, if this is a little off topic, but reason I study biographies and I study people is because you learn so much more by learning their journey instead of just seeing the results. And that song there actually changed the internet. I don't know if you're aware of that, Roy. Did you know that one song changed the internet? Well, on YouTube, it started getting millions and then tens of millions and hundreds of millions of views. And all of a sudden it's the first song ever on YouTube to get over 1 million views. And YouTube started freaking out because they use a very common algorithm that a lot of computer programs use, especially for video and stuff like that. And the algorithm is a number like 2.1 billion. It's a long string of numbers. And this algorithm was it was utilized in YouTube's all their coding, meaning that if Gangnam Style got to 2.1 billion views, this number, it would actually crash their whole system because the system doesn't know what to do after that. And so as he was gaining momentum and he hit the 1 billion, 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion, they had to actually change all their coding in YouTube to handle one song. And now today, there's songs that have had 3, 4, 5, 6 billion views, because once it was proved it could be done over 1 billion, things went viral even quicker. And so as I'm coming out of retirement in 2012, Gangnam Style was big, and I just loved the energy. And so I decided that kind of came on by choice or chance. We had just finished doing a breakthrough exercise, and the audience is already excited and that they just did something big. It wasn't the fire walk. It was something a little easier, but still very, very powerful. And I thought, let's reward them. And so I would go to, at the beginning of the event, I would grab my staff and I'd say, for those of you who want to do this with me, we're going to do it as a little fun for the audience and to reward them and thank them for playing full on. And so I'd show them a choreography I'd come up with from watching videos on YouTube. I'd say, we're going to do this dance. And watching the crowd and the audience react. Like one of the first times I did it, I was in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. I had 4,000 students in the audience. And my staff came running through the audience to join me on the stage. Well, when they came running and the music started to start the dance, the audience became a flash mob. And next thing you know, we had over 300 students on the stage. Everybody had their phones out. And in that moment, it was one of the first times I had done it. In that moment, I went, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So I did it for about 2 years all over the world. And every time the audience just goes wild and crazy, and it brings their energy to a whole new level. And it's kind of one of the ways that we help wrap up the weekend. So that's kind of how it began and why I loved doing it, but I haven't done it in about 6 years.
Oh, so no, I love it. Lovely story. And when you were traveling around, because you said you burnt yourself out, were you traveling with your wife, or was it something that you were disappearing? Because that's something, if you're spending so much time away, sometimes people are bringing them with. What were you doing, and what do you recommend people do? Because if they're not able to stay in their same country, or even, America's so big, if you're traveling to a different state, it's still being away from home.
It is, absolutely. And so I've been very, very blessed that way. And in the sense that, like, as an example, my wife and I, we met when we were 13. We started dating when we were 16, and we actually got married when we were 19. And this year we celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary. Wow. And my wife, I will have no problem telling people I would not be where I am today doing what I do today if it wasn't for my wife. Because if it was left to me, I would be comfortably miserable in a job. But my wife's not willing to let me play smaller than I am. And sometimes that means, Roy, she has to kick me in the butt because I'm, if I left to my own devices, I get, fear, things coming up that get comfortable. And so she's kicked me in the butt. And so when I became a trainer, because one of her passions is to support me, she became one of my main logistics supervisors. And so we were always traveling together. Now, she stepped back from that role a couple of years before I took my break because she was getting burnt out. And here's what, again, it comes because I understand logistics. Here's another reason I appreciate my teams. See, my wife and I, we were traveling and we were together. but we weren't together. Because she was running logistics. She was up an hour or two before me, and she wasn't in bed until an hour after me. I was putting in 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days. She was putting in 16 to 20-hour days. And so when she stepped back, she still traveled with me for the most part, because at that time, we were only at home on average 2 days a month because we were doing so much trainings. And when she would stay traveling with me, she now became my greatest coach. See, now she had time to sit in the audience, and no one knows me like my wife does. And she could tell if something was bothering me. So when we'd have lunch together, she'd be like, "What's wrong?" I'd be like, "Nothing." And she'd like, "Bull, what's going on?" And so she'd be able to help me stay on track. So she became my greatest coach. When I came out of retirement, didn't travel with me as much. But the biggest difference from pre-retirement to post is I learned too much, like my passion, too much, it's not bad, I'm not good, not at all, not good. So I wanted a little more balance. And when I came out of retirement, I made the decision that I would do, instead of 40 or 50 trainings a year, I would do a maximum of 20 a year, no matter where in the world I was, so that even with all the traveling, I'd have 6 months a year at home, 6 months time off. And I know a lot of your listeners are probably going, "Wow, I wish I could have 6 months off." But see, I designed my life that way because I realized what was not working. And I choose not to have to go through 2 back surgeries again. Because during that 3.5 years off, I ended up going through 2 back surgeries because I was not taking care of myself. If I'm going to live my passion, I'm going to take care of me at the same time.
No, I think that's fantastic advice for people. And like finally, like you have a book. I know you're giving it out like electronically free, but you might tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. Yeah. My first book, which is called Success Left a Clue. And, I titled it that way because I'm known for giving people clues all over the world when I'm on stage. And I've also noticed from my travels and watching successful people, there's a lot of clues to success out there. And it's not just a book to read, though. And here's what I want your listeners to understand, Roy. It's not a book that you sit there, you read it, and you put it on the shelf, and it becomes shelf help. I designed it as a workbook because I cover 6 steps to be able to really design the life you truly want to have. And step number 3 is you have to take action. And knowing that people are creatures of habit and most people don't take action, I wrote it where I give action steps all the way through the book. And I'll actually say, do not read any further until you've done this action. And then the next chapter, I begin it with, have you done the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go and do that action before you continue. And so Success Left a Clue, we published it in 2017. It's now an international best-selling book. And I'm working on my second book. So I decided that why not allow people to get the digital copy of Success Left a Clue as our gift? Because you were so gracious to have me on your podcast. Why not give it to them as a gift? And they just have to simply go to robertriopel.com to be able to get that copy. Knowing, though, I want them to use it, not just read it. Use it and watch how it can change your life. Because the 6 steps, to tell you real quick, step number 1 is to dream big. Not just to dream, but to dream big. Because as children, anything was possible. But as we started growing up, society started teaching us to be realistic, to you may not have the right education. You weren't born into the right family. So dream smaller. So it's about getting people to dream big again and do vision boards. And I go through a bunch of processes. Step number 2, find a mentor or someone to model from. Because unless you're like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, I guarantee you, whatever you want to do or accomplish, someone's done it before you. So quit trying to figure it out on your own. Find someone who's accomplished what you want to accomplish. Find out how they did it and mentor from them. And mentoring doesn't mean they actually have to one-on-one mentor you. You can mentor by taking a training that they've put out or reading a book that they've written. This is why I love biographies. Remember what I said earlier? Find out the story that got them to where they are. But the twist on step number 2, though, too, as well, is instead of just who can I mentor from or model, also be asking yourself, who can I be a mentor to? And some people, Roy, they go, but Robert, I haven't accomplished anywhere near what you have. How could I be a mentor? I guarantee you, you've gone through something in your life that you can help someone else get through. So it's about giving, not waiting until you're perfect and you're successful before you give. You start helping whoever you can as you can. Step number 3, as I said, take action. I love the saying that says one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. Most people get paralyzed by trying to analyze things. Step number 4, you can have people that have great dreams. They have the greatest mentors in the world. They even take action, but they still sabotage themselves. And the reason is they miss step number 4, which is celebrate your successes. So every day when I wake up, I have my success and gratitude journal. And I write down at least 5 things from the day before that were successes, or what am I grateful for? Who am I grateful for? I start my day off that way, because when you celebrate, then you're putting focus on things going right in your life. Celebrating your successes. Step number 5 is have belief in yourself. And this is a tricky one, right? Because it's not about arrogance or being self-centered. As my friend said, a really good friend of mine says, he says it's about being centered in yourself. And for me, it's about having confidence, not arrogance. So believing in yourself. How many people go through self-doubt, low self-esteem? And for those that are not watching this, I'm pointing at myself right now too, because everything I do and teach is what I've needed and what I continue to need in my life. Even with the success I have, I still go through self-doubt. And so working on that belief in myself is a constant thing that I'm doing. And then step number 6 is really basic, that it really messes some people up. And I'm going to preface and say this: do not let the simplicity of the system of my 6 steps fool you. Don't let it fool you. That's what will take people out, is they'll go, this is too simple, and they won't do it. I keep it simple because it works, and I keep it simple so people will do it. See, step number 6 is simply repeat the first 5 steps. And the reason that's important is because when you set a dream, you find a mentor or someone to model, you take that action, you celebrate that success, it elevates the belief in yourself, which means you can now set bigger dreams, go for greater mentors and models, take greater actions, have greater celebrations, which then again elevates your belief in yourself, and it becomes a beautiful perpetual cycle. So that's what the book goes through. And it's me in a book. It's quirky, I have fun, it's high energy, but it's me in a book format.
Love it, and I'm sure the listeners will love it as well, because I'm very interested in it. And just from your energy that you've come across, all the experience that you've got. So Robert, listen, I love this conversation. Thank you very much. So where can people get you? What's the website?
Yeah, it is just my name. So Robert Riopel. So RobertRiopel.com. When they go there, they'll be able to download the book and get it, so they can start reading it. And again, digital copy of it. And they can also follow me on Facebook. I have my fan page. Just put my name in. I cannot, for some reason, accept any more friends. Facebook has maxed me out on 5,000 friends. But I can have people follow me on my Facebook fan page, where I'm always doing posts. I'm doing videos. As I start traveling again, I do trainings. Whenever I'm around the world, things are popping up, I just record and I put it up on my fan page to help in any way I can. So that's the best way to follow me.
Excellent. Listen, Robert, thank you very much for all you've shared today.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate being here.
So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube as Speaking Podcast. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, give it a thumbs up, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.